Hello and welcome to Firstpost Africa, where we get you the top stories from the continent and from across the world. I'm Alison Lagrange, coming to you live from Johannesburg, South Africa. First, let's take a look at the headlines. Russia detains a 29-year-old Uzbek citizen over the death of a top general in Moscow. Russia says the suspect has links to Ukraine's security service. Denmark warns of a heightened risk of military confrontation in the Arctic, which it says is being driven by aggressive behavior by Russia. Israel intensifies strikes in Gaza, killing at least 20 Palestinians as the United States, Egypt and Qatar push for a ceasefire agreement to halt the 14-month-old war. South Korea's impeached President Yoon Suk-yeol fails to appear before the country's corruption watchdog after he was summoned for questioning for imposing the martial law. And senior officials from the Ramaphosa government visit Mozambique to hold talks amid fears of an escalation over the disputed results of the October elections. Our top focus is on Mauritius, African island nation located strategically in the Indian Ocean. Mauritius's Chagos Island deal with the United Kingdom might be under threat. The new Mauritius Prime Minister, Navin Ramgoolam, has submitted changes to the deal, under which his nation would gain control of the Chagos Islands, seen as the United Kingdom's final colony in Africa. The agreement was struck with the UK Prime Minister Kier Starmer, under the leadership of Pravind Jugnauth in October of this year. Now, it was dubbed as historic and was seen as a major win for Jugnauth ahead of the elections. But just a few days later, Mauritius held the general elections, and opposition led by Navin Ramgoolam secured a landslide win. Ramgoolam, who returned as Prime Minister for a third term, indicated that he is not happy with the deal signed by his predecessor. He quickly ordered a review of the deal. Now, the deal is regarding the Chagos Islands, which are a group of over 60 smaller islands, strategically located in the Indian Ocean, 2,000 kilometers away from Mauritius. After years of talks, the UK's Labour government, headed by Kier Starmer, decided to cede its control on the islands, ending a dispute running for 50 years. But the deal signed between Starmer and Jugnauth had a catch. Under the UK agreement, the UK would retain its control over the island of Diego Gracia, part of the Chagos archipelago, which is home to a joint UK-US military base. The UK would lease the island for 99 years, as per the deal. But the new Mauritius Prime Minister, Navin Ramgoolam, has now submitted changes to this proposed deal. Ramgoolam spoke in the country's parliament on Tuesday, and he said that the original agreement did not benefit his country enough. He said the UK has received the counter-proposals, which are now being currently considered. The new Mauritius Prime Minister has not revealed what the counter-proposals are, but earlier his agro-industry minister made some comments regarding the deal. He criticized the former Prime Minister for granting the UK a long lease over Diego Gracia. He claimed the actual lease was of 200 years, but it was publicized with an initial time frame of 99 years. Over the years, the UK has faced huge criticism for not ceding control of the Chagos Islands. The government of Mauritius has long argued that it was illegally forced to give the islands away, in return for its own independence from the UK in 1968. Now, Britain has also faced flack for forcibly removing more than 1,000 islanders from the entire archipelago. Rights groups also accuse the UK and the US governments of using the islands as black sites or torture centers for suspected members of armed groups such as Al-Qaeda. So when the UK's Labour Prime Minister Kier Starmer took office this year, he considered it is important to give up or cede sovereignty to Mauritius. He thought it was a good deal, which guaranteed the use of its airbase for at least 99 years. However, the Chagos deal has created political rift in the UK. The opposition Conservative Party are against the agreement. The Shadow Defense and the Foreign Secretaries wrote a letter to Starmer on Tuesday and raised the grave concerns about surrendering plan, calling it disadvantageous for the country. But these are not the only challenges to the Chagos deal. There is a threat of another potential blocker also looming. Now, he is none other than Donald Trump, the president-elect of the United States. As per reports, Trump's team sees the Chagos deal row as a day one issue for the new administration, and it does not want the deal to go ahead. Trump reportedly sees the deal as a way for China to access the islands and build a rival base. He is worried about the security implications on the joint US-UK military base and the overall security risk in the Indian Ocean and the Indo-Pacific region. So the future of the strategic Chagos Islands yet remain unclear, and the coming days will be crucial for their fate. And now to discuss this further with us is Dr. Charles S Carlo, who is an international relations expert. Thank you for being with us on Firstpost Africa.
Thank you.
Now, what are the key changes that the government has proposed to the deal concerning the future of the Chagos Islands, and how do they reflect the aspirations of the Mauritian people?
Yes, indeed, it is quite significant that the government has reconsidered the negotiations which they had, and I think this goes down to earlier days in 1968, when the negotiations were done for the independence of Mauritius, that those islands shall be concluded to belong to the benefit of the people of Mauritius. But over 56 years now, the Mauritian government and the Mauritian people, especially those who were displaced, about 1,000 families in the communities were displaced. They haven't been compensated, and as well as those islands which are in question, the joint UK and United States military bases hasn't been paying the land taxes, to the Mauritian government.
Yes. How does the government plan to balance the historical, cultural, and the legal claims of Mauritius with the current strategic and geopolitical considerations surrounding the Chagos Islands?
I think the new government of Prime Minister, is actually wanted mutual beneficiary in terms of the both islands. And I think they want also to retain the sovereign part of those islands that they belong to Mauritian people, as unlike what the British government has proposed in the October negotiation, that they would like to retain a 99-year lease, contrary to the plight and the interest of the people of Mauritius. And I think during the negotiations, like what you have pointed out, the only way they can do it is through the diplomatic channels. Mauritius, the United States and the UK enjoys diplomatic relations between the bilateral and multilateral relationships. And I think those channels, they need to continue negotiating. I believe the Prime Minister met the delegation which came from the UK to represent in terms of, they met on the 11th of December this year to negotiate further in terms of the mutual benefit of those two islands.
Now, what measures are being taken to ensure that the communities do have a central role in shaping the future of the Chagos Islands?
I think the communities has appointed their representatives who are now also not only the other parties, the UK, the US-led interest within that representatives or envoys. The communities themselves from those communities have appointed their not only government representatives, but the community representatives who have been found in the terms of negotiations, and they're actively involved to make sure that their interests are addressed, especially the compensation which was promised to them, that they will be compensated for those who are displaced, and as well as the historical cultural exchanges which they were promised in the previous contract which they signed. Once those are addressed in the presence of the community, then they shall move forward to sign a new agreement.
Doctor, thank you very much for being with us on Firstpost Africa. Your values are very appreciated. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. For
our next story, we focus on the future of US-Africa ties. The outgoing Biden administration is attempting to set a framework for the future of US-Africa relations for the incoming president, Donald Trump. Now, in the latest, the United States Congress has introduced a law that could possibly force Trump to engage with Africa and to invite its heads of governments and heads of state to a summit in Washington, D.C. next year. Trump, who takes oath on the 20th of January, might have to host African Leaders Summit before the end of 2025. The bill would formalize periodic talks into a traditional policy event, something that Donald Trump would not be too keen about. The bill also mandates the Secretary of State to hold city summits focused on sub-regional cooperation. It also lists establishing an implementation office at the State Department to ensure Washington's efforts with Africa translate into tangible outcomes. The annual defense bill, if passed into law, will require that the U.S. Secretary of State host U.S.-Africa leader summits every 4 years. The must-pass bill has already sailed through the House of Representatives and is expected to easily pass in the Senate as well. But this latest push by the Biden administration comes as it faced severe criticism for neglecting Africa. Critics say that Joe Biden did not pay much attention to Africa during his presidency. He hosted the US-Africa Summit in 2022 in Washington, D.C., but it came almost a decade after Barack Obama did it in 2014. His only visit to Africa as president came at the tail end of his tenure, as he visited Angola earlier this month after losing the presidential battle to Trump. And even during this visit, Biden only visited Angola, skipping traditional US allies like Kenya. In Angola, Biden showcased the Lobito Corridor, a new railway project to help transport critical minerals to the west. This project is aimed at countering China's stranglehold on Africa's critical minerals. Joe Biden did repeatedly say that Africa was a valued and important partner, but he failed to match this enthusiasm with substantial deals. For Biden, Africa was approached mostly as a theater for global influence and counterterrorism, rather than as having intrinsic importance to Washington. Now, as he leaves the Oval Office, he has little to show for his Africa policy, beyond the 2022 summit and his visit to Angola. But he wants the incoming Republican to tread the path that he set for the US-Africa ties. Trump being Trump is most likely to dump Biden's plan. He already has a list of executive orders that he wishes to pass as soon as he takes office. And if this does not align with his policies, this bill could be binned too. Now, assessing Trump's 2016 term as president, he and his team are not likely to think much about Africa in the second term either. West Asia, Ukraine, NATO, and China would continue to consume Trump's attention rather than Africa. During his first stint, critics accused him of dismissing Africa, cutting funding, and curbing immigration. He even reportedly referred to some of its nations as shithole countries, which triggered outrage. Despite this and his numerous racist remarks, many African leaders admire Trump's entrepreneurial career and his transactional approach. He did introduce schemes to increase investment in Africa that remained operational even after he left office. But there are concerns that he could roll back on investment and on trade made under the Biden administration. The African Growth and Opportunity Act, which enables eligible African countries to export some of their produce to the US without paying taxes since the year 2000, is also a key point of concern. During his previous administration, Trump said that the scheme would not be renewed after 2025. Now, experts say that he is also more dictator-friendly than Biden was, and he could also show a more friendly face to Russia in Africa. Trump reportedly has a closer relationship with Russian President Vladimir Putin than he lets on. And when it comes to China, he recognizes that he needs to maintain some level of partnership to counter Beijing's expansionism. So, as Donald Trump takes office, there's an opportunity for the United States to reset ties with Africa. But the Republican may not want to do it the Biden way. Moving on to the Horn of Africa now, the region that is already plagued by a number of challenges. It is witnessing the resurgence of a dormant one. Now, after months of calm, the Somali pirates are back with hijacking and armed robberies. In the latest, they've hijacked a Chinese fishing vessel with 18 crew members on board. Their demand? $10 million in ransom. Efforts are underway for the release of the vessel. However, there has been little headway so far. Our next report gets you all the details.
The crisis-ridden Horn of Africa is witnessing a resurgence of another major global challenge: attacks by pirates. Piracy off the coast of Somalia has been a major threat to international shipping since the 1990s. But after months of calm, the Somali pirates have now made a comeback. Their latest victim is a Chinese-owned fishing vessel that was hijacked off the northeastern coast of Somalia last month. And to set it free, the pirates are demanding $10 million. The vessel that was hijacked in late November has 18 crew members on board. The alleged hijackers included the ship's security guards, who later joined forces with armed men from the coastal region of Somalia to hold the ship captive. The hijackers had taken the fishing vessel to Zafun district in the semi-autonomous state of Puntland after moving it between several locations. The European Union's anti-piracy naval force Atlanta, which brought the issue to global attention last week, said that the alleged pirates were carrying AK-47 assault rifles and machine guns, but added that none of the 18 crew members were injured. Reports also suggest that a Somali company acting on behalf of the vessel had also offered to pay a ransom of $300,000 to the alleged hijackers. But the proposal was declined by the pirates. Some reports also indicate that the hijackers had initially demanded a ransom of $5 million, but were only offered $1 million, which was also refused. The Somalian authorities have not yet disclosed about the ransom demands, but added that the license of the Chinese vessel had expired. The hijacking of the ship underscores the persistent challenges of maritime security in Somalia's waters. Somalia for years has been blighted by piracy. The activities peaked in 2011 when the United Nations estimated that more than 160 attacks were recorded off the Somali coast. Somali pirates wreaked havoc in the waters off the coastline between 2008 and 2018, but were since dormant until last year when pirate activities began picking up once again. Earlier this year, Somali pirates hijacked a Bangladeshi cargo ship that was transporting more than 55,000 tons of coal from Mozambique to the United Arab Emirates. It was only released after a hefty ransom was airdropped over the vessel. In the first quarter of 2024, the International Maritime Bureau reported 33 incidents of piracy and armed robbery along the coastline of Somalia. To contextualize, Somali pirates have generally operated in the Gulf of Aden, Gaddafi Channel, Somali Sea, and to some extent the Indian Ocean and the Red Sea region. The recent rise in piracy have been for a number of reasons. The first is the drop in seasonal monsoon winds, which makes small boat operations difficult due to high winds and rough seas. Then comes the rise in Houthi attacks in the Red Sea region, which have pushed the shipping routes to the south. This has increased vessel activities along Somalia's coast, creating opportunities to exploit maritime vulnerabilities. The third reason is the diversion of naval forces, such as that of the United Kingdom and the United States, which have been redeployed to tackle threats emanating from the Red Sea region. But with the rise in piracy attacks off the coast of Somalia this year, doubts have been raised over the efforts by the Somali government and the international community to curb such activities in the Horn of Africa, a region that's already plagued by a horde of other challenges.
Our last story today is from Nigeria, where in the quiet of the country's rural hinterland, children as young as 5 are mining the prized white gold, lithium, an element critical to clean energy solutions. Beneath the promise of income for Nigeria's most vulnerable, lies a darker truth, a cycle of poverty, exploitation, and danger. In this story, we reveal the human cost of the global shift to green energy, China's controversial role in Nigeria's mining sector.
In the quiet bushlands of Nigeria's Pasali, the wind moves with a suffocating rhythm. The faint beating of these axes cracks open the rocks. Stuck inside these rocks is lithium, the white gold of the 21st century. Lithium is central to the production of rechargeable batteries and smartphones. Its role is most critical in the global transition to green energy. Nigeria has one of the largest lithium deposits in Africa. The coveted mineral is currently mined in 4 Nigerian states. But beneath this frenzied rush to extract lithium lies a troubling reality. Most of the lithium extracted in Nigeria is the product of exploitation, the exploitation of its poorest and most vulnerable, its children. Lithium mining in Nigeria's Pasali began about a decade ago, but in a few years, this sleepy rural town transformed into a hub of illegal mining. Inside these mines, the desperation to jump out of poverty meets the promise of an income. Children as young as 5 years old descend into mining shafts. Hunching over heaps of rubble, they work in teams. Crude tools in these small hands chip away the stones. In just 1 hour, they can sort up to 22 kilograms of lithium ore. They bag it all up and carry it to a warehouse. 5-year-old Zakaria Danladi was once enrolled in a school, but poverty pulled him into the mines. For Juliet, another child worker, the story is the same. Zakaria and Juliet are armed with nothing but hands and grit. A mining tragedy could be just one loud thud away. In recent years, underground explosions and collapsing walls have claimed the lives of many. The adults in these mines know the risks, but they let the children mine out the lithium anyway.
I
know that the mining activities are dangerous, and there are disadvantages, but every profession has its own disadvantages, including driving, and death is unpredictable. Someone might be riding on a motorcycle, and a driver could knock him down and dies. For us, we know that once we enter into the mining shaft, we know there's a possibility of disaster happening.
The back-breaking mining by these children feeds an elusive supply chain. Passing through the child workers who sought this ore, lithium begins its journey to foreign markets. In Aliyu Ibrahim's warehouse, piles of lithium ore await transport. All of this white gold is destined for various parts of the world. Ibrahim admits that child labor is rife in his supply chain. But he goes on to offer a chilling defense. Child workers are either extremely poor or live alone as orphans. Mining is all they can do to survive, he says.
These children laborers go to different mining sites to work. When someone comes and sees them working, looking for what to eat, they chase them away. But because we are privileged to have mining sites, if children come to my mining site and they find lithium that they can sell and feed themselves, we will tell them to go ahead and help themselves. We cannot stop the kids from trying to make their daily wages because the majority of us are poor and we don't have anything, and we have to work so that we can eat.
As children mine away their childhoods for survival, the shadowy world of illegal mining thrives. An informal network of buyers and sellers operates in and beyond Nigeria. Above all, the government oversight is minimal and exploitation is plentiful. The roots of this exploitation lie in Nigeria's stark poverty. Over 63% or 133 million Nigerians live in multidimensional poverty. According to official data, 51% of all poor in Nigeria are children. A vast majority of them live in the country's rural areas where government's writ runs thin. China's involvement in Nigeria's mining industry casts a long shadow. In recent years, Chinese businesses have been accused of profiting from unlicensed mines that employ children. Nigerian authorities have arrested multiple Chinese nationals for their role in illegal mining operations. Much of Nigeria's lithium wealth gets siphoned off to market leaders like China. Illegal mining costs the country billions of dollars each year. Officials have pledged to crack down on illegal mining operations, but corruption and weak oversight undercut those efforts. For now, Nigeria's lithium production continues, much of it illegally. The children of Pasali remain trapped in the white gold rush, their dreams buried under the rubble they toil to extract. Until global supply chains prioritize ethics over profits, the cost of lithium will be paid through the currency of broken childhoods.
And that's it on the show for today. We will see you again tomorrow at the same time. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.